haram and doing what Allah has commanded. And by the consensus of the scholars, imtithal is easier than ijtinab. It is easier to be obedient to Allah in what He's commanded than it is in what He has prohibited. And this is very important to remember that it's easier to fall into ma'asiyah than doing the right action. Why? Because the nature of ma'asiyah is a downward motion. It's a downward motion. It's darakat. Jahannam is darakat. And so there is, in a sense, like a gravitational pull that is helping you to go into this type of destruction, whereas the darajat is an upward motion, spiritually. In other words, it takes an exertion of effort to do this. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ said, حُفَّةَ الْجَنَّةُ بِالْمَكَارِهِ وَحُفَّةَ النَّارِ بِالشَّهَوَاتِ. Jannah is literally surrounded by difficult things, and the fire is surrounded by those appetites, things that people incline towards. And then he says, فِي ظَاهِرٍ وَبَاطِنٍ بِذَا تُنَالٍ, in the inward and the outward. So there has to be ijtinab and imtithal, not simply in one's outward form, but in one's inward form also. And with this, taqwa is achieved. And taqwa really should be the goal of every moment, because the Quran begins, Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is the book in which there is no doubt a guidance for people of taqwa. It's not a guidance if you don't have taqwa. It can lead people astray that don't have taqwa. And we have historically many groups, from the Jahmiyyah to the Qadariyah to the Wasaliyah to Nadhamiyah, all of these different sects and groups that use the Quran as their proof for their bid'ah, for their ahwa, for all of these things, and literally went astray. Why? Because they did not have taqwa. And the Quran begins, Alif Lam Mim. You look in any tafsir of any worth by any mufassir, and they will say, Alif Lam Mim, Allahu A'lam. Allah knows what that means. So the book itself begins by telling us, you are limited, ya Bani Adam, in your knowledge. You are limited in your knowledge, and you have to enter into the realm of this book with humility. If you think you can come to this book and bring your previous knowledges and presumptions, then you will be led astray. But if you submit to the book, and the beginning is submitting to Alif Lam Mim, that the answer to Alif Lam Mim is Allahu A'lam. If you submit to that first criterion in reading the Quran, then you're from the people of taqwa. But if you enter into the Quran with arrogance and thinking that you can in some way interpret this book, and Allah asks, are you more knowledgeable or Allah? Are you more knowledgeable or is Allah more knowledgeable? And this is why the Muslims traditionally, who have been rightly guided, have stopped at that point, and they look to see the guidance of Allah, His Messenger, وَأُولَى الْعِلْمِ فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you don't have knowledge. And one of the sicknesses of this modern age is all of these people that want to literally become muftis and ulama. They read one book, Fiqh Sunnah, and suddenly they're faqih, and they're giving everybody fatwa and things like this. And this is a disaster. And even worse than these people are the ones that don't even read a book, and they give fatwa. I mean, it's gotten even to that point where, oh, don't worry, ya akhi, istafti qalbak, like your heart is a mufti. Istafti qalbak is based on somebody being fitra. I mean, the Prophet, when he said to that man, istafti qalbak, he knew who he was talking to. Not everybody can take a fatwa from their heart, because a lot of hearts are just filled with shahawat and ahwa, and what their heart will tell them is, do whatever you want. You see, so the heart has to be really in a position before it has to be in a fitra state, and that takes literally for most of us a deep struggle and mujahada and riyada and these type of things. So then he says, فَجَاءَتِ الْأَقْسَامُ حَقًّا أَرْبَعًا. If we want taqwa, there are four aspects to it. Four aspects to taqwa. And then he says, وَهِيَ السَّارِكْ سُبْرًا مَنْفَعًا, and it is for the person of suluk. It will take them to the paths of benefit. And he says, يَغُضُّ عَنَيْهِ عَنَ الْمَحَارِمِ. The first thing that we learn is that the seven limbs, and he'll go through each one. يَغُضُّ عَنَيْهِ عَنَ الْمَحَارِمِ وَيَكُفُّ سَمْعُهُ عَنَ الْمَآثِمِ كَغِيبَةٍ نَمِيمَةٍ زُورٍ كِذِبٍ وَلِسَانُهُ أَحْرَى بِتَرْكِ مَا جُلِبٍ that he should يَغُضُّ عَيْنَيْهِ عَنِ الْمَحَارِمِ. We should lower our gaze from what is haram. قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّ مِنْ أَبَصَارِهِمْ. Tell the mu'mineen to lower their gaze, and tell the mu'minat to lower their gaze. This is on the haram. What is ever haram to look at, then we should lower our gaze from it. Because the eye, although the ulama have agreed that the eye is literally not connected to a kabira, that there's no action that the eye can partake in that is connected to a grave wrong action. But, like Ibn Abbas said, لا صغيرة بالاستمرار. There is no little wrong action with istimrar, with continuity of action. So if the eye is always looking at the haram, that itself becomes a kabira. So the actual, if the eye sees haram, occasionally, which is, especially in this country, you're just, a'udhu billah, I mean, we're just surrounded by imbibing the haram, which is a disaster for one's iman. Because they agree also that the asra'u jarihatan ala fasad al-qalb al-ayn, the quickest limb to destroy the heart is the eye itself. This will destroy the heart. And part of it is because visual things are actually more difficult to get out than hearing. You can hear many things, but you'll forget them. You can hear music, but you'll forget it. But I guarantee you, if you've watched films, that you've got those images in your mind right now. I know that everybody in here who's seen films or watched television, you can close your eyes now and imagine a film that you saw, and there's images of the haram that are in your heart. They're there. How do you get rid of that? We shouldn't have looked at it in the first place. Now it's there. What do? This is a disaster. And this is what shaitan does. He likes to fill the heart with the haram, so there's no room for the halal. Because the haram is a wi'a, and every container has limits. And you have to empty it of the haram and the jahiliyyah before it can be filled with the halal and the nur of Islam. And that's why the Sahaba radiallahu anhu said, the Prophet literally emptied us out of jahiliyyah to fill us up with Islam. So there's an emptying that has to take place before there's a filling. Just like you have to exhale before you can inhale. Just like the heart has to be contracted before it can be expanded. This is the nature of Allah's of creation. The diastolic, the systolic. This is the very nature. The pupil expands in order to take in. And it contracts in order to prevent light from coming in. And this is the nature that Allah has made us on. So contraction and expansion, Allah is al-qabid and al-basit. He's these two, the expander and the contractor. So the more we expand for shaitan, the more we contract for iman or for rahman. The more we expand for the rahman, the more we contract for shaitan. And this is really the nature of creation. So he's telling us, يَغُضُّ عَيْنَيْهِ عَنِ الْمَحَارِمِ. And then, يَكُفُّ سَمْعُهُ عَنِ الْمَآثِمِ. He turns away from listening to the haram. So he begins with the eye, because that is the most important organ. And then he goes to the ear. Now the ear is very interesting also. If you look at the eye literally takes in only a linear. We have a basic peripheral vision, but it's limited. We don't see behind us. But if you look at the ear by its nature is circular. It takes in everything around it. And this is why generally in the Quran, Allah begins with إِنَّ السَّمْعَ وَالْبَصَرَ وَالْفُؤَادَ كُلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ كَانُوا عَنْهُ مَسْئُولًا. That the hearing, the sight, and the heart, all of these things the human being is responsible for. We are literally responsible for these things. Why? Because if we allow our ears and our eyes to open up to everything, then the heart is what suffers. So the ear and the eye, which are called mawarid al-ilm and mawarid al-jahl, they're the areas where knowledge comes in, but also where ignorance comes in. And they come in and enter into the container of the heart. And so literally the mu'min is somebody who protects and guards his eyes and his ears in order to protect his heart. They're literally like hudud, like boundaries in which he must defend them. So these are armies that we're to use for Allah to protect the city of the heart, which is the residence of Iman. That is the Malik, that is the king, that we should respect and protect. But if we literally open up, like any country that just leaves its borders and anybody can flood in, then this is what happens with the human being. The heart is left unprotected, and literally the armies of Jahiliyyah flood into the